Welcome to the All Access Podcast from the experts at Thiessen. Each episode, we'll talk about technology topics, trends, or solutions that manufacturers need to know in today's rapidly evolving times. Sit back, enjoy the discussion, and let us know what you think.
Hello, my friends. Welcome again to another episode of the All Access Podcast. I am your host, Michael Thiessen, and I'm coming to you from our studio here at Thiessen America in Troy. There are a few episodes that we're doing throughout the course of the year where I'm really looking forward to it, and this is one of those episodes. You know, there's only certain time in your life when you talk to a real wizard. Real wizard that can look into the future, that has that crystal ball available in order to see what's going on in our life. And no, he is not Michael J. Fox. He's not one of those guys that went to the future and came back, but he is an individual that really has his fingers on the pulse in order to see what's going on in our industry. And of course, our industry is the automotive industry. We're coming to you from Troy, close to Detroit, where the big threes are at. And of course, this is our livelihood. This is what we do: dye, molds, etc. So I'm really excited to bring to you and to have a conversation with the president and CEO of AutoForecast Solutions, Mr. Joe McCabe. He has been, for the last 25 years, providing auto industry and advisory and forecasting services, production strategy, customer relationships, and on and on and on. And he really has a team of individuals that he's guiding and giving us consistent updates at the OESA, at multiple other advisory boards on what's going to happen here in the next 8, 10 or so years. So without further ado, I want to get Mr. Joe McCabe on the line here. Joe, how are you?
Good, Michael. How are you?
Hey, wonderful. Can't complain a bit.
Excellent. That was a glowing introduction. So I'm hoping I can, I'm up for the task, that being a wizard here. That's fantastic. So we're really looking forward to the conversation with you.
Hey, my friend, honestly, we've talked before, and it's really intriguing to hear from you of what's happening in the auto industry, and I sure hope that you have additional power generators hooked up to your crystal ball, because some of the information that we're going to give to our listeners hopefully is going to help them to kind of guide them of what's going to happen and maybe in the mold industry and the dye industry for the next years to come.
Sure. Yeah. Looking forward to diving into this. Lots and lots to talk about, and lots of volatility and disruption. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. It's all about how you proactively approach it, or if you sit back and hopefully wait for the chips to fall. Both strategies are interesting, but not all work at all the same time.
Exactly. Now, I got to come out right away up front. You got to be extremely busy right now because of all the stuff that is happening in the news. And of course, if you're listening to this podcast 10 years from now, let me set the stage. We've got supply chain issues. We've got shortage in chips. We've got this entire battery thing that's going on, steel issues, all this kind of stuff. So your life must be an absolute disaster right now.
It is, in a very good way, unfortunately. Pandemics and disruptions and global issues and economic crises, they are fit right into our wheelhouse of forecasting. Our job is to help our clients really navigate the so what out there. What's the noise, what they should be listening to, how they should invest. Should they jump into the electrification story? Should they not? Should they hedge their bets? Everything in between. And because we're in forecasting, our customers know that, yes, it is a crystal ball, and we're not going to give you 100%. We know what's going to happen in 3 years, but we build a dialogue with those customers customers. We say, look, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you not hearing? And it's really about that concierge level of working with them hand in hand and talking the things out and trying to say, is this reality? Should we be looking at this stuff? It's really been helping our company grow in leaps and bounds. So it's unfortunate that we're going all through this, but at the same time, we're hoping we're giving enough information to help people wade through the pain and survive it and come out glowing at the end.
Absolutely. Let's start with one topic: batteries. I mean, we're not talking double A's or triples or whatever it is. A lot of our mold makers currently, of course, there's the internal combustion engine, ICEs, and right now they're creating a lot of molds for all the different items that are there. Transmission housings, all that kind of stuff is in production. Going to electric vehicles, that changes everything, doesn't it?
Absolutely, in multiple directions. The biggest one is that they are, frankly, they're a lot easier to manufacture. A lot less parts, a lot less hurdles of regulation, no real EPA involved anymore because there's no emissions, then no big deal. When you rip out a whole powertrain, which is not a significant portion of the manufacturing and volume of a vehicle, the engine, the transmission, everything, and you replace that with maybe 2-4 motors, a battery, and a bunch of technology, it is a major shift that is happening. What we're seeing right now is, when we had this conversation 20 years ago and new players were entering the market, we'd say, look, the pie is the same size. There's consumers out there. They're consuming vehicles, and they're all internal combustion engine vehicles. So whatever is the coolest right now, whichever has the best warranty, whatever's winning all the awards, that's maybe get a bigger piece of the pie. What we're doing is we're changing the propulsion system. And we change the propulsion system. We're trying to convince all these consumers to go from what they've known to what they don't know. And there's going to be less volume. There's going to be less manufacturing. It's going to have a major impact on sheer volume of production. So when we talk to our suppliers, we're saying, this isn't just a new thing you need to pay attention to, because most of our supplier customers are volume-based players. They care about that stuff. Or if you're making the tools and the dies, they care about how many of these things I have to make. If I have to make less and less to serve a different product, that hurts my bottom line. So I can't raise prices on it because the vehicle manufacturers won't let them raise prices on them. So I got to find other creativities of making revenue. And it's a really, we use this disruption word constantly, and it gets ad nauseum. We're sick and tired of trying to say it all the time, but this is truly a new front we're all walking into. It's concerning for suppliers and manufacturers and jurisdictions just that aren't prepared and how they're going to prepare for it.
Mm-hmm. I see. The thing that scares me a little bit, you mentioning there is less parts to manufacture. Okay. Transmission, gone. Or we got electric motors on the wheels. We've got the engine, gone. Okay, so we have now a nice little trunk, or as the British say, a boot in the front. There's all of these kind of things that are now gone. That means less dies, less molds that has to be manufactured, less tooling that has to be updated. Does that mean then that these automakers, because there's less items that have to be manufactured, can get revisions out on these vehicles much quicker?
Well,
do you think the cycle is still going to be the same?
Traditionally, when you're in a supplier community, you're talking to the manufacturers at least 3 years before they want to build the next vehicle platform and program. And the tooling and die people are usually first in line. So what's great is they know what's coming because they say, we have to build all the tools that we can actually make these, whether it's a fascia or an internal part or whatever it might be. So the idea is that we are seeing that timeline compressed, where new manufacturers that have a great idea, maybe a couple $1 billion of SPAC money and a charismatic leader, all of a sudden are in the EV business. And Tesla's proven this strategy is possible. Now, the problem is it always a cookie cutter? Can you always be the next Tesla? We argue no. There's not going to be multiple Teslas coming out of this thing. They're first in, they had a cool product at the right time, and they have a leadership that people buy into. He's built that ecosystem around his product like Apple products have. But what's going to happen is that manufacturers are going to say, look, I have a great idea too, and I want to build this thing in the next 18 months. and I got to rush to market because I want to be the first in the truck market, the SUV market, the sports car market in terms of electrification. Everyone's rushing to be some sort of jockeying in first place right now, and it's putting this crushing pressure on the supply base and say, wait a second, this is not how we work. We can't just magically make these things, and we can't commit the tens of millions of dollars of tooling and investment with a product that you think is going to sell $150,000 a year, when frankly you may only sell $25,000 because there's 20 other EVs looking for that same piece of that pie. So that whole idea of trying to plan against it and a truncated timeline in untested vehicle manufacturers, never built a vehicle sometimes in their life, let alone an EV vehicle, and asking their supply base to walk with them into this fire and say, yes, we're going to be the winner, that is a tough pill to swallow. So it's the idea of who the winners are going to be and who the potential unfortunate losers are going to be in this. And it's really what's keeping up the whole supply chain. That's what's keeping them up at night.
Yeah. And with battery, I mean, battery powered vehicles is one thing, but we saw it with Tesla. New technology came into play. If I just look at the interior, large iPad size screen, double iPad size screen, all this type of technology, everything is being done via the touchpad on the screen. There's no knobs, no gadgets, no things anymore in there. Everything is controlled via hand motion or touch motion on these screens, which means then for the mold makers, again, less trim that has to be produced, less tooling that has to be produced. So battery is one thing. Technology that comes along with these battery items is another thing. 4 years ago, I was flying back from Germany, and I was sitting beside a guy from, I believe he was from Lear, and he told me, he goes, man, in the next 5-10 years, you will see cars that have no side view mirrors anymore. I go, well, what then? All would you have is cameras. You have cameras on the side, cameras on the back, cameras in the front, cameras everywhere. And the technology changes, which means then, again, less tooling that's going to be produced. And I think battery is kind of enabling this new technology to come into play. I mean, you see the Rams now, they have this big screen in the center of the console there too. Everybody's going to that new area. And that kind of scares me, less and less and less tooling.
I completely agree. You know, what's going to happen is not just the car designs are changing in this direction. It's the fact that consumers are willing to accept these changes. They say, look, I want a nice open interior. I want my, lack of a better term, like we say, iPad in the middle is going to control everything. That's really all I need. And if you can get away with, as a manufacturer, limiting the need for multiple trim levels, which translates into improvements to your bottom line, which translates into more profitability, which translates into shareholder value going up, which that's the ultimate golden egg at the end. How do we improve shareholder value with different product or different ways of selling these things? Then that's the direction the vehicle manufacturers are going to take. And you're right. The supply line that is involved with making them. I mean, we're hearing about suppliers that right now are saying, hey, the electric vehicle manufacturers, we only offer one color car. Right? If you want, look at how stark the inside of a Tesla is. They're phenomenal vehicles. They're rocket ships. They're a sports car, and they're an electrified company that just so happens to be in their space. Their technology is light years ahead of other people. So they deserve the win now. But I don't think they're always going to be the winner in the future. People are going to play catch up. There's smart manufacturer legacy players out there. But this idea of limited trim and this build to order thing, which I think we're going to get to more as well as we move forward, that whole changing of the consumer side and the acceptance of that lack of variability really is really hammering on the suppliers that have been there through thick and thin and making their money on trim changes and colors and different options. Those are going to be taken away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, currently, Tesla was the pioneer when it came to the electric. And then all of a sudden, we saw this huge boom. All of a sudden, companies were coming out of the woodworks. You had Fisker, you had then Lucid, you have Rivian, you have all of these electric vehicles coming up with their own ideas, kind of trailing, maybe not trailing, but taking a piece of Tesla's pie. And then, of course, our big threes come in and saying, well, crap, I got to do the same thing. So now we have everybody, and you were right earlier. You said some of these companies, they come in, they've never produced a car before, and all of a sudden they're in this race.
Yeah, so two parts of that. That second part I'll address first. The companies that are coming in that are never built a car before are the perfect target for a proactive tool, die, whatever supply chain player. The one that says, look, you need me to hold your hand and guide you to how to build a vehicle in this market. Right? We talk to manufacturers of different regions. They all have different ways of looking how they build in it, but they try a commonality approach for economies of scale on a global basis. But that supplier that comes in and say, I know what you need because I have 40 years experience doing it. Let me be your guide, are going to be the winners. Because not only have some of these manufacturers never built a vehicle, they don't even know who the suppliers are to go to get the parts yet because they're so new to the story. A lot of manufacturers that want to come into North America, especially in the EV space, are going to be forced with, certain USMCA regulations of localized content, right? Getting things done here. They can't always import all their products if they're coming from Asia or Germany to say, hey, I built an electric vehicle and I'm bringing everything in. And you're not going to import those batteries. It's way too costly. We saw the major fire on the one cruise ship of all these electric vehicles that are burning like the sun for, a week. And so that's going to limit that side. So you're going to build where you sell. And if you build where you sell, especially in the tool and die place, these are monster piece of equipment. You're not just pushing handles around, you're building monster piece of equipment. They're going to look for that local player that is helping them, guide them, because they know, like you said, I'm a new EV player. I'm competing against all the new EV players, plus all the legacies that know what they're doing and are waiting in the weeds for their opportunity. How can I differentiate myself? But how do I convince the market that I'm real? And every time a hurdle happens, Rivian went through a hurdle recently, like our costs went up. They try to push that cost onto their reservation holders. They all scream bloody murder, and they had to roll that back. But that's the reality of this. This is not an easy business we're in. This is not iPhones we're making once a year. When people commit to a project, it's multiple years to even get it started. And then there's multiple years of maintaining that vehicle. Tesla has proven, to your first point, that shareholder value is truly the ultimate goal. Took them 10 years to make a profit. While they finally made a profit is because they were selling their carbon credits to manufacturers such as Chrysler, pre-Stellantis, FCA, and the shareholders love them. So what happens is the manufacturers say, I'm in. Rivian comes in and day one has an evaluation of $100 billion. Now, it has since dropped significantly because people see it, but they're still in the tens of billions of dollars of valuation with very little vehicles to show for. Lucid, very little vehicles have anything to show for. Tens of billions of dollars of valuation. So when you can get shareholder value up and you can build a model that does it with less product, less manufacturing, less hurdles, less across the board, you're going to say, I'm going to take that path. The supplier is going to say, whoa, I can't play with less. I always need more. So I have a different business model I have to play to. And that's where the real bifurcation the road is going to hit. And that's the pain point that's going to happen in the future of helping the suppliers survive and still building at lower volumes with less content. That's the interesting part that people aren't really diving into yet because they just want to drive this, hey, this electrification thing is here, and we're making it a too big to fail proposition.
Right. Do you think, or do you see, our existing car manufacturers, let's say the big threes that we have here, they have multiple different electric platforms out currently. Some of them have a mixture of different electric and ICEs that they're still producing. Do you think because of the regulations that they have already imposed on them, that these new players have it easier than the existing? And do you see that they're going to be the dinosaurs? And I saw it on one of the OESA conferences that, we've got in the future going to be Amazon and Apple going to be ruling the world of the automotive market or whatever. Do you see the kind of that happening in your forecasting?
I see on paper, it's very easy to say, here's the next shining object. Let's all run to this new fidget spinner kind of thing and see how we can capitalize and make money real fast on it and not realize that, well, there's going to be something 8 years years away from called recycling these batteries? Or if this manufacturer never built a car before, how much should we trust it because we're trusting the cameras and the LiDAR and everything to make sure it works? There's going to be that initial honeymoon phase of look at this really cool thing. And the legacy players are not stumped. They're legacy for a reason. They're watching what's happening. They're learning from what needs to be done. They're learning from what needs to not be done. And they're going to capitalize on it eventually. I think, in 10 or 20 years, it's a different conversation. You're going to have a lot of leaders. I don't think Tesla's always going to be the leader in perpetuity. And I don't honestly think they don't want to be the leader in perpetuity. If Tesla can get away with building 2 to 3 million cars a year forever, and they can plant their flag and they can fill the capacity of all their plants, they win, right? Look at $1 trillion company. They win. And they don't need to build 10 and 20 million cars a year to service. And if there's a recall, get in there. They want to be in a nice sweet spot. So we see the others are going to play catch up. I don't think that the GMs and Fords and then the Stellantis are ever going to be, oh no, we lost. They're not going to lose. The Amazons and the Apples of the world, yeah, they're going to get into it. Are they going to want to build their own vehicle? Probably not. They're going to contract it out to someone else. And maybe that contractor is eventually a Detroit 3 or another major player. Or maybe it's they get absorbed by that major player in the future. But, we talk about these new kids on the block of, hey, I got this new electric vehicle. This is not an easy industry. There's no one that's figured it out. Tesla is a unicorn. There's no, I am shocked if anyone becomes the next Tesla in terms of bring something to the market, can survive for 10 years with no profitability, and then as a shining diamond at year 11. Will be shocked if that happens. There's too many players all fighting for this, and the consumer's saying, okay, now I'm going to start picking. And so that's where I think that we're seeing maybe the Detroit 3 and legacy players we're saying are behind. I'd argue they're just smart, long-term players that have a bigger animal to feed. They have a lot more, tens of thousands of employees. They have dozens of plants all over the world. They have a footprint and a need to be integrated with the global economy. And if you're just someone coming and say, hey, here's my new EV, it's a lot harder than you think.
Good. We already set the stage that there's less manufacturing on batteries, electric vehicles, and the technology that involves all of this. Does that mean that as a consumer of vehicles, that your price of an electric vehicle will be lower?
No. I mean, look, there's no prize. I mean, we can talk about that, but if you look at the price of electric vehicles, even as they were getting subsidized, when Tesla was able to get up to their 200,000 units of sale and get the $7,500 credit, even GM has exhausted that. Those prices never came down. There's no prize in a manufacturer in lowering their prices because they have to make money on the ones today to pay for the future ones. And sometimes they become loss leaders because they have to build a market share with the hope that 5-10 years later, they're going to make profit. So the idea of these things coming down in costs, I mean, again, what's going to happen is the manufacturers are going to find a way to make their expenses lower and improve their profitability. But they're not going to say, thank you, we just took 2% out of a manufacturing cost. Consumer, we just took 2% off your car. There's no way it's going to happen. One of the things the new players have an advantage to is they get that credit because they haven't reached that 200,000 unit threshold. And the Tesla and GM and again, Ford's going to be right around the corner. Are going to reach that 200 pretty darn quick if they haven't already, and they're going to be losing that credit. In terms of a tax rebate for the consumer. But, you got to look at the new consumer, though. New consumer is an emotional buyer. They're socially influenced. I mean, you and I are pretty much same generation. Not test driving a vehicle before you buy it is absurd. Yet people are buying what they see on the road or what they're promised what this thing could be, and they're laying down their money on something that's never been proven, never been produced, yet get me in line because I want to be an early adopter. And as we see the technology, and we argued about this in the past, but I think we agreed on is that we are a very subscription-based type of consumer now. We're not going to go out and spend $1,000 on an iPhone, but we'll sure spend $30 a month on it because that's 30 months I never see. But that's $1,000 piece of equipment we have in our pocket. I talk about I cut the cord on my cable at home thinking I'm going to save all this money. And I have 14 different streaming services at $6 a month that say now I'm spending actually more per month. So you're going to find the manufacturer saying, well, not only are we going to keep the price the same and increase them, we're going to be more creative how we can get in your wallet every single month. How are we going to not wait every 3, 4, 7 years to get you at one transaction and buy our car? We want to give you subscriptions. And this isn't sharing car subscriptions. This is we're going to turn functionality on or off. We're eventually going to give you AV. Tesla does it right now, $200 a month. If you want your autonomous vehicle feature this month, great. Here's your credit card, bang, over the air update that night, you have autonomous vehicle driving. You don't want this month? Okay, turn it off. And they're going to find a way to get in our wallet. And as long as the profitability comes in with less and less volume, then again, manufacturers will win at the end of the day.
So what I'm hearing from you is this technology and these car manufacturers, they're all smart. Let's just say that they know how to do a business. So if I'm going next month on a nice little vacation out to the Outer Banks, and if I have a vehicle like that, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to turn the autonomous mode on. It's going to cost me $50 to turn that on. It's going to be on for that particular week or for that trip just to get me there and back home. This way, then Chrysler or GM or Ford or Tesla, whoever that's going to be, is going to turn that subscription on for me and off I go.
Absolutely. If you make a price point well enough and you want to try it out and all of a sudden you get millions of consumers turn a thing on, think about how that's instant revenue on technology that's already embedded in that vehicle. The only way you can turn on the technology is have it already embedded in the vehicle. You're not going to bring it to a service center and say, wait, can you do me a favor, put the AV stuff in? I'm going away this weekend. It's already going to be there. Years ago, you'd see the VCRs. Every VCR was the same. The $50 one or the $500 one had the same board in it. They just decided to turn on what functionality. Oh, I got the $500 one. It's got the same functionality as a $50 one. They just haven't opened that functionality up for you. And it's cheaper for them to have that commonality of production across the board. So it's always ready. But yeah, if you could be in a consumer's pocket for 20, 30, 50, $100 a month, off and on, millions of consumers, that's instant revenue. And are they going to reduce the price of the car to get you there? I'd be shocked if they did.
So here's an interesting thought. Just while you were talking about this, it just dawned on me. We're in the software business here at Tevis. Okay, so our customers, when they get software, essentially our software is one trim level, so to speak. And the license key turns on and triggers whatever module you want to utilize. Does that mean that for the future, the cars are going to have one trim level with everything in it, and the car manufacturer just enables you whatever trim level you want? If you want to have Sirius radio, you turn that on. If you want to have whatever gadgets, auto lane assist, automatic parking, they turn that on for you, but you have all the technology already in your car. Is that what we're going to? That's
where I'm leaning our conversation to, because if you look at it, Tesla's got two interior colors. You want black, you want white. Great, that's what you got. Here's your gigantic iPad. That's it, right? That is literally their trim at that point. When you look at it, 4 different car colors. In the end, you're done. And if you want something over the air that night, you want blue lights in your interior car tomorrow. Hey, we're going to turn it on for you. When you get up in the morning, you'll have blue lights on inside your car. It's going to be very technology driven.
So all of, if I look at just General Motors, the GMC and Chevys and all of this, they're essentially the same vehicle, just a different trim level or different quality looks and all that kind of stuff. Does that mean we see some of those levels kind of go away because essentially they're the same car?
I think it's two things. I think there's going to be a reduction in trim level options available to the consumer, but it's going to be coupled with this new build to order strategy that everyone's signed up for. So one of the benefits of COVID is that's forced us as consumers to wait. And when you wait and you say, look, I want a vehicle. Well, there's nothing on the lot. Great. Go online or go to the dealership, sit down with someone, build the car you want. And you might say it in 2 days. You might say it in 2 months. You might say it in 2 years. Who knows? But this idea of when we come out of this, I'd argue that there's no reason to keep 90 days worth of truck inventory on a lot. You don't need the SLT and XLT in every single color just in case that consumer rolls in and says, yep, that's the one I want. They're going to say, here's the one I want. Let me go online. Let me customize it to me. And I'm going to get it from right to my door, whether it's via the dealership, it's going to call me when it comes in, or delivered to my door. Most likely the former one, because you can't really kill off the dealerships. You got to get more creative with them in terms of, I think, sell business. But there's a cost involved with keeping inventory. You got to keep the cars clean. You got to roll them around so that pitting on the rotors doesn't happen. You get flat spots on the thing. You got hailstorm. You got to insure these things. And the list goes on and on at a dealership. If we can live with a build to sell strategy, then you're going to say, yep, here's your 4 trim levels. That's it. Here's your customization, and we're going to deliver it the way you want to deliver it. And they'll be able to control that. But I think they're going to offer less and less, because there's no prize in building all these separate trim levels. If you convince the consumer you want this vehicle, here's your 3 options. Take it or leave it.
Right. Well, perfect segue. You switched immediately into where I was going to go next, and that's our beautiful supply chain that we have currently. And you said you're 100% correct. If you drive by a dealership nowadays, you see a very reduced vehicle count on those items. And I'm going to push you a little bit on this entire thing, that customers are accustomed now, because of COVID, that they're accustomed to wait. I mean, I have a friend of ours that bought an Explorer. He waited for, a year to get it in beautiful blue color with everything. And do you really think in our society currently that people want to wait, or that, because if I look at Amazon, you can get your stuff ordered in the morning, get it in the afternoon. It's instant gratification. I have these things right away in my hand. By now waiting for over a year or 3/4 of a year until I have that shiny piece of object sitting in my driveway, do you think clientele is now reprogrammed to say, okay, it's absolutely okay that I'm going to wait?
I think not everyone's obviously reprogrammed to that. If you take a U.S. consumer as a model, how dare you tell me I need to wait? I want instant gratification. That's just how we're wired. I think it's going to be a thing over time. But again, if you only offer certain options, if you say, look, if you want this when it's on the lot, here's the sticker price. And they're going to put their marquee products on there. They're going to put something that, the models they want to push a little bit. But if you're willing to wait, we're going to give it to you this way. And I think people will say, you know what, maybe I can wait 2 weeks or 30 days. Right now with the chip issue and Russia, Ukraine and China and everything in between, look, it's not 2 weeks we're waiting. We're waiting months and months and months. But let's say when we come out of this pain and chips are in huge supply and everything, we're all getting amnesia because we think no new pandemic's going to come in the future. I think you're going to see this idea of building a machine that says, okay, you're going to wait 2 weeks if you want this trim level, 3 weeks if you want this one, 4 weeks if you want that one. So your instant gratification becomes, all right, I'll wait 2 weeks. I'll take that one. So I think it's going to be a hybrid model. It's not going to be 0 things on a dealership to do. But again, if you can take the cost structure of maintaining that vehicle on that lot and roll that back into profitability of the vehicle, that's a big win for the vehicle manufacturers. So I think it's like electrification, tail wagging the dog. We talk about electrification, but it's a very small subset of consumers that are actually doing it. It's just growing at such a rapid pace and such a global issue that's the hot topic of every conversation. You're going to have that with the consumers. You're going to say maybe 10, 20% of consumers are willing to build to order. Great. Let's take 10, 12, 20% of my inventory off the lot. Now we're at 30%. Great. Let's take 30%. And eventually you'll whittle it down. It's not going to be a light switch moment, but it will be this idea that when we're having this conversation in 15 or 20 years, the definition of a dealership experience is going to be completely changed.
Mm-hmm. Let me shift gears there quickly, because there is a concern of mine. Because nowadays when you drive on the streets, you see electric vehicles everywhere. I mean, this morning I drove in, I counted 5 Teslas that drove by. I've got a couple Priuses that I followed, and all of this. You see more and more and more out there. That means then, if there's more vehicles out on the road that are electric, guess what? I got to plug them in. And where is that little thing coming from? That little electricity, it's got to come from some kind of power plant. The administration said somewhere 2030, we're going to have X amount of electric vehicles in our U.S. Area in there. Does that mean? I lived for a while in California, and I've seen rolling blackouts, and I've seen during the hours of 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock, you shouldn't be utilizing your air conditioners because it draws a lot of power. Is our structure set up for this?
No.
That's my concern.
Yeah, in a word, no. The government, honestly, I take it as the government thinks we're playing a game of Sim City. I'm just going to drop a little plant on my laptop. Ooh, there's an electric vehicle. There's a chip manufacturing plant, and there's more capacity for electricity. It's an interesting topic because every time we have these conversations, this push and pull and electrification is allowing it to sort of stay at a manageable pace. And as long as it's at a manageable pace, hopefully infrastructure can catch up until it takes off. If it was going to take off tomorrow, we got a problem, right? There is not enough plugs in the world. There's four things. There's range anxiety. There is the infrastructure. There is the resource limitations. There's not enough lithium in the world to make these crazy numbers we're hearing. And there's the cost. And you say, hey, there's only four things. If I knock out one of them, that's 25% reduction. That's not the case. These are very difficult things to knock out. And the idea of infrastructure alone is a major problem. So what's happening is the manufacturers, they are not targeting you and me. They're targeting our kids and our grandkids. They're building a view of what electrification should mean is part of your daily experience. And if you say, I've bought into it, then I'm going to buy into this idea, well, okay, maybe I will have to wait for a charging station to open up. Look, you go to any parking lot that's got charging stations, they're never full. That's the reality of this. So this is a very, very slow, long game we're playing. We tell manufacturers that are involved in the powertrain business, don't turn off your lights yet. There's a lot of need for engines and transmissions in the future. Even BEVs are here, but there's plug-in hybrids and there's standard hybrids that still need powertrains in them to motivate them. So there's a lot of, this is going to be a very long, drawn-out conversation, but you got to convince the consumer this is the future. And if you have to wait, you have to do your greater good as a consumer, that you might have to wait 20 minutes to charge your vehicle. Okay, you'll get some people in that round, and then it'll keep on growing and growing. But infrastructure today, with all the plans that are on the paper, it just doesn't exist.
Can you imagine yourself, you're driving to Florida in an electric vehicle and you got to stop every 400 miles or so for another 20 minutes or an hour in addition, just to recharge the engine or do whatever. Sure, you can stop and have lunch or dinner or whatever, and during that time you charge it. Okay, I get it. But kind of like me, that is driving nonstop, and I'm just getting in the car, stop at McDonald's, have a cheeseburger on the go while I'm driving. Mm-hmm. I can't do that anymore because I need to charge it.
I'll be devil's advocate, and it's important everyone knows this conversation. We're not anti-EV. We're just pro-reality, and we're really trying to work with and help people plan around where they should put their investments. But I have a buddy who lives in the Carolinas. He comes up. He's got a Model 3. He loves it. It tells him, he puts in the map, and it tells him where he's going to stop to charge and how long he's going to stop to charge. The technology is phenomenal to make it an easy, seamless issue for the consumer. Now, you pile on $5 gas, and, this is a whole other political conversation we're not going to have right now, but you pile on this idea of forcing people to really think about $90 to fill their tank every time and what should they do with their new future strategy. That's adding a little pain to the problem as well. People don't buy cars for today. They buy cars for how it's going to last them for the next several years. So as the longer we have pain at the pump, the more people are going to say, well, maybe this is our future and maybe I should consider EVs. Whether I got to wait charging or not, maybe it's worth offsetting the $90 every 2 weeks I got to put in the car. So there's a lot of other factors that are driving the consumer to rethink the strategy. Most EVs that come out right now, 250-mile range is the new standard. It used to be 40 miles. Now it's 250. That will handle 90% of the consumers, more than that, in terms of their daily load. Yeah, you might have to once in a while, a long trip with the family, plan it out. But again, you got to weigh out the pros and cons. So that's where we're at right now. It's a difficult conversation, and we're all trying to have it, but they're trying harder and harder to say, yes, this is how EVs are going to get over those 4 major hurdles.
Do you see with right now, you mentioned our gas prices are just sky high through the roof. I'm not looking forward going to the Outer Banks in my Jeep. Just say it this way. Driving on the beach, yes. Do you see that we're going to see a repetition of what the 70s was? That because of the 70s high gas prices, the large vehicles, the big V8s that we had, were kind of like dying out and were replaced with small Japanese engines that got good gas mileage, that now we're seeing that, okay, gas prices are high. Everybody's now jumping to the electric vehicles and getting that instead.
Yeah, that's the hope of the manufacturers and investing big in electric vehicles. They got to find a way to recoup some of this tens of billions of dollars investment. Over the last decade, we've seen basically the elimination of V8s to V6s, V6s to inline fours have turbos on them, EcoBoost, whatever it might be. So that's been going on for the last 10 years. We see FCA getting out of the Hemi business. And replacing it with 6s and electric vehicles. Tesla's proven, if you want this awesome torque and this rocket car experience, it's doable in an electric vehicle. You're not going to, there's some consumers just not going to move them off of that muscle. But yeah, that's been something that's been going on for years. But now they're at that tipping point of going, well, I can't bring down the engine and transmission combination, CVTs, whatever it is, enough. I can't add 14 different gears into it. My cost doesn't make any sense. So now I got to push people in electrification because that's the next one. You pile on the stick and the carrots, right? The incentives and the penalties. The government is penalizing manufacturers. And if you can't make your carbon footprint, you will have to pay. So now they got to put that into their cost structure. Say, geez, I may have a consumer out there that still wants this vehicle, but I'm going to lose money because of the penalty that the government is placing on me. I'd argue electrification is not a consumer-driven phenomenon. It is a governmental and environmentally driven phenomenon. And you don't have to be an environmentalist or anti or pro. Who's anti-environment? No one's anti-environment. But there's a huge push on why we need to do it, and consumers are then saying, yeah, but I don't want to consume that. But if they're limited in what they can get in the future, they might be saying, okay, well, now I have to buy this thing because it's the only one available, because the costs of the IC engine variants are going up because the vehicle manufacturers are getting penalized to build them. And that carrot is the only way that stick is really the only way this thing moves forward. If you just say, here's an EV, take it or leave it, without penalizing the manufacturers or incentivize the consumer, we're talking lightweighting again. We're not talking EVs anymore.
Early on, when we started with going away, or not going away, but looking at alternative energies, there were multiple players on the field. And all of a sudden you saw that really everybody only talks about electric vehicles. Just recently, I watched a video of a vehicle in Britain. I think it was an Audi or something with hydrogen propelled. Do you see that because of the infrastructure situation, that we need to produce more energy, more power plants need to be created in order to facilitate that need of more energy, that potentially other energy factors are going to be looked at, such as hydrogen, that we see now a split up of more and more, that a consumer has now a selection of, okay, I want to have EVs, electric vehicles, or hydrogen vehicles, or even still the ICE going on. Do you see that happening too?
Yeah, hydrogen to us is the long game. Let's take Toyota as an example. Toyota was the grandparent of electrification with the Prius. They could have easily taken that into the sunset, been Tesla. Take that technology and scale it up 100-fold to make this awesome vehicle. They said, no, electric vehicles are more commuter vehicles. They're short run. We think hydrogen is we crack hydrogen out of the water and we track it out of the air and all that stuff. And it's an abundant resource and it's clean. And, when you combine it, water is your only a byproduct. I mean, on paper, it's probably the best one on paper. But the problem with hydrogen, obviously, infrastructure is the biggest problem. The other problem is optics. People don't know how to trust hydrogen. They're going to think they're driving on a big Hindenburg, for example. They won't be. but they won't be. But you hear of one Tesla fire, people go, whoa, these things catch on fire. Let me rethink this a little bit. So there's an optics issue, but more importantly, there's no prize in fuel cells now. There's a natural migration of making money, and I equate it to the tape, the album, to the tape deck, to the CD, to the MP3 player. Right? If they're with all four evolved, people wouldn't know what to buy. So you exhaust your market on the current technology. You start bleeding in your new one because that's your next revenue model. You got to figure out, how am I going to make money 50 years from now? Hey, my next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years is EVs. But when you look at EVs are basically storing electricity in a battery. Fuel cells are taking that same battery, much smaller, but just storing the energy in the fuel. So if you would convince a consumer to look at an EV, the next round for them in 20 years is fuel cell. But you got to convince people EVs first. You're not going to have a fuel cell. You're not going to have an IC consumer probably jump to fuel cell. They'll probably jump to EVs, and then you'll change your power, and your power then will change it into fuel cell. So it's the long, long game. It is a great technology. No infrastructure, same problems occurring, but you use less battery. But major problems with getting into market. So you're talking about 20, 30 years until any kind of scale of fuel cells really takes hold.
So power up your crystal ball one more time. For our listeners, the mold makers, the die makers, right now they're extremely busy because they're producing molds and dies for the electric vehicles and the ICE vehicles. So they're extremely busy right now. When do you expect that the amount of molds and dies are going to be reduced because they're only producing electric vehicles at that time? What's that time?
Boy, that's I would say you need to be prepared in the next 5 to 10 years. It's not just the migration to electrification. It's also the elongated vehicle programs that manufacturers are using that say, I don't need a brand new tool or die yet because I'm going to make this thing last a couple more years because maybe I'm not 100% convinced EVs work. We already see the Detroit 3 having this issue. Well, maybe we should push the EOP of the end of production of this vehicle out a little further, because we can't just light switch moment, bring all electric trucks in and all of a sudden have no IC trucks, and we're going to lose our bread and butter. So maybe we should push that one platform out a little further. The problem with that is the tool and die manufacturers go, wait a second, I thought this was going to be a 5-year life cycle. You just made an 8-year life cycle. I need a plan for the next one. And you just told me that my plan is now moved out 3 years. So it's not just this, you're going to have less and less content and trim levels in the EVs. It's the elongation of the existing ones, and when they migrate to the next ones, which might cause a little more short-term pain for those mold and die manufacturers.
Right. Well, Joe, I could be talking to you forever. There's so many more questions that I want to ask about onshoring of manufacturing, maybe making chips here and all of this kind of stuff. But unfortunately, we got to power down that crystal ball for a little bit in order to catch our breath. Are there any advice that you can give from your forecasting that you have seen that maybe our listeners can take a little bit with them and utilize this for planning? And where can they go maybe to find some more information of what you have just mentioned?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So I've been forecasting business for 25 years. We forecast every vehicle built worldwide for the next 8 years, who builds it, where, when, how many, update every month down the powertrain detail level. So what that means is I've seen the pitfalls. I've seen the 2000s. I've seen the 2008 and 9. I've now see 2020 through 22. My advice is always be proactive. If you're in a supply chain, always look for the next investment opportunity and knock on their door and say, how can I help you? Instead of waiting for those RFQs to roll in. I can't tell you how many suppliers are basically just order takers and say, hey, great, we got a new RFQ. What's it for? It's for this. Let's go run and build and go, wait a second. Let's slow our roll. Is this company viable? Is this volume viable? Does this product make sense? Should we ask them to meet us halfway on the tooling requirements up front because we necessarily may not buy into what they need? So it's a cautious proactive model we tell all of our customers to do. How we can help them is, hey, that's what we do every single day. When you're an expert in mold and die, that's your job. I'm not an expert in mold and die. I'm the expert in data. When you want someone expert in data, you shouldn't just say, I'm buying data now. Oh, crap, I'm a mold and die provider. Now I got to be an expert in data because someone just sent me an Excel spreadsheet. That's not how we work. We actually work with our customers in a concierge hand-holding experience, helping them understand the pitfalls, helping them validate, hey, does this RFQ really make any sense or not? And the things that the data tells you, but the things that data doesn't tell you. And sometimes that's equally important. And basically, at AFS, that is our strategy. We've got a team of experts that can bring that to light. We love to work, obviously, with your audience more, do much more with you, Michael, and your team. This is something that's been really exciting on my part here, really healthy banter. But that's the idea, is really paying attention to the market shifts, not running into every fire and say, hey, this is where we got to be, being methodical. And how do we approach our business to be around for not just 2 or 5 years, but 20 and 50 years?
Awesome. Joe, with that said, you framed it nicely. Thank you so much for being on the All Access podcast. I guarantee you're going to be on in the future again, because you know what? We can't live without data.
That's true.
So
Michael,
thank you
so much. Yes, a great time, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Awesome. Well, you heard it from the wizard himself with his crystal ball. He has really his finger on the pulse of what's going on. And, EV cars are here to stay. It's up to us what we're going to do, how we're going to deal with it. And we really got to look at the data. We really got to look at the information that's in front of us to make solid, knowledgeable decisions. And we shouldn't be afraid of the new technology that's out there. I mean, if I was not around when Henry Ford got the first car out, the gas stations were not yet there. It's the same thing that we're running into right now. We just got to be smart of how we're dealing with it. And it's for our kids and grandkids, really. And they're going to be experiencing this. So if you have any future topics that you would like us to cover, please get it to us at marketing@tebisusa.com. We'd love to always get from you the input of how you like the podcast. Get it to us. If you want to really look into what AFS is doing, go to AutoForecastSolutions.com and get some more information from that. Get in touch with Joe McCabe, and he will power up his crystal ball for you and give you that information. With that said, thank you all for listening, and have a successful and wonderful rest of the week. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining this episode of All Access. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about manufacturing technology solutions and Tebis's capabilities, visit our website at Tebis. That's TEBIS.com.